So last year, I was actually able to accomplish financial freedom via the stock market. And next year, I'm actually going to start doing the same thing with the real estate market. So in this video, I'm going to give you my full guide to how I actually plan on accomplishing it. Now, the cool thing is that with the stock market, it took me about 7 years to actually accomplish phase one of financial freedom. With the real estate market, I'm assuming it's going to take me about 10 years. And I'll give you my full plan in this video right here. Now, full transparency, I don't own a single property. So neither do you have to own a single property. Now, obviously, I have owned property before. Last year, I actually bought and sold a house very quickly, very fast. And it was because I was actually buying a personal property. But this is different. This is going to be for investment purposes. So now that I have capital on hand, my question is, or my big problem is, how do I invest this capital correctly to get me to my goal? And whenever you start a goal, you always want to start with the end in mind. What is it you want to accomplish? And work from there backwards to see exactly all the steps required. It's like, okay, I want to buy a car. Well, I want this car. Now, how much does it cost? How much fuel does it take? And how do I work backwards to actually accomplish this ultimate goal? All right. So that's what we're going to do with this video. Now, as always, guys, like this video. On top, also subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified. My name is Tommy Bryson. Now, the first part, guys, is this. Let's work on the end goal first. What is the end road? What do you want? And write down everything so you know what you want. Also, take full advantage of this video. Don't just watch me talk about my goals. You write them down too. So this way, you can actually work on them as we actually do this video together. Now, the first part is this. I want to be able to make $24,000 in cash flow every single year from the real estate market. That is my end goal. Off of a 6% return, meaning I want to make 6% return on my money, and I want that to be equal to $24,000 every single year, or about $2,000 per month. Now, what is the deadline? I want to be able to accomplish this in about 10 years. Now, before you say that's a long time, in my opinion, it's not. In the stock market, it took me about 7 years. In the real estate market, I'm going to assume about 10 years. If I do it sooner, great. If it takes me longer, that's fine too. But it's still a lot shorter than basically spending 45 years working in a company and not even knowing if you're going to get a pension or if the government is going to have enough money to actually pay you Social Security benefits. Okay, so this works out great for me. And remember, you don't want to be too extreme and say, I'm going to do it in 1 year, because most likely that's going to be unrealistic. Now, how do we actually put these numbers into action? The answer is very simple. We have two different plans here, which is basically you can use other people's money. You can use other people's money plus your money to pay it off faster, or my plan, which I'll tell you at the end of this video. The first phase is this. Let's run the numbers via using the bank's money to fund my investments to be able to get to my financial freedom number, all right? So overall, if my goal is to get to $24,000 every single year in cash flow, by the way, it's very simple math, okay? So run the numbers yourself here. And my goal is to make a 6% return. Well, just divide your goal divided by 0.06. That's the percentage, right? 6%. And that tells you, hey, I need to have about $400,000 invested. That earns me 6% to actually accomplish that $24,000 goal every single year. Now, if I'm using OPM, other people's money, the bank's money, and I'm putting down a 20% down payment, well, this tells me I need to have $400K worth of equity, but how much overall debt am I going to have, or how much profit I'm going to have? Well, just divide this number by 20%, which is divided by 0.2. And that tells me I need to have about $2 million worth of property. Now, that obviously means I'm going to have about $1.6 million worth of debt. That's one plan. I have $400K in equity. That earns me 6%. That makes me about $24,000. And then I have about $1.6 million in debt. That's basically being financed by the people, the tenants actually living in the property. This plan is a good plan, but I don't like it because I don't like having debt. And I don't want to do it this way. It's too much leverage for me, and I don't like it overall. Now, my second plan is this, is to basically reinvest the profits to pay off the mortgage faster. So basically, same idea. $24,000 is my income goal at a 6% return. So divided by 0.06, that's about $400,000. I'm going to put down 20% on these properties with the bank's money, right? So divided by zero point 0.2, again, that's $2 million. And I'm actually making $24,000. Well, remember, I have $400,000 in equity here. So I have $1.6 million to actually pay off, usually in about 30 years. And if I'm making a $24,000 profit, the overall goal would be, hey, instead of actually paying this off over 30 years, I'm going to grab that $24,000 and put it into these properties and basically pay off my mortgage a lot faster. Now, how much faster would I actually be able to pay this thing off? Well, let's go over here and run the numbers. Now, here are the numbers, okay? So I'm going to go right here to home price. Let's just put in here 2 million, right? I'm putting down 20%, which is basically 400,000 over 30 years at a 5% return. It's about a $9,972 mortgage, okay? But remember, right? You're slicing this up between several properties, okay? So let's say, yes, it is $2 million, right? But if you're buying, for example, properties worth about 200K, or let's say 300K, divided by 300K, well, that's about like, like 6 properties or so, okay? Like 7 properties, right? That's the general idea. So I'm using this for simple math, but it's not to say you're actually going to buy one property for $2 million. You probably can't even qualify for it. So I'm just using this big number for simplicity's sake, okay? So overall, if I'm actually earning 6% on this 400K, I know I'm earning about like $24,000. So I click right here to amortization, and I click right here to a one-time, well, right here, additional payment annually. Okay, so I'm going to put an additional payment of $24,000. Well, what happens is this, okay? Every January I'm going to do this. What happens is this. I pay off my entire mortgage by 2043. Now, obviously, right now is 2023, right? So this basically means I'll be done with my mortgage in about 20 years. So I actually save about 10 years or so. Now, here's the cool thing about this plan, all right? The idea is that, well, in 20 years, because I've been reinvesting all of my profits, I'm going to have still $2 million worth of real estate. But here's something else that you might not even consider. Remember, real estate appreciates for time. Let's say your real estate appreciates about like a 5% return. If you use the rule of 72, well, just divide 72 divided by 5, it tells you exactly how long it'll take you to actually double your money. The answer is your money's going to double about every 15 years or so. So that means that if you've been buying this real estate and paid it off over the past 20 years or so, well, your real estate isn't going to be worth $2 million per se. It's actually going to be worth double that. So about like $4 million. That's the cool thing about it, okay? So, and all of this is going to be fully paid off because guess what? You've been paying off everything by reinvesting all the profits over 20 years. So in 20 years, you have $4 million worth of real estate. And if you're earning 6% on this, the answer is, well, you're earning about $240,000. If you divide that by, that's 10 times my goal, right? So that's pretty cool. So if you divide that by 12, well, that's about $20,000 a month you actually make in 20 years if you do things correctly and properties appreciate by around like 5% or so. But that's actually pretty unrealistic. Usually properties are going to appreciate somewhere like about like 3%. So everybody 24 years or so. So like 4 years later, you have like that $4 million worth of real estate, which is still pretty awesome if you ask me. Now, both these plans obviously require leverage. One says, I'm going to buy $2 million worth of real estate. I'm going to use the profits today to pay myself, okay? Number 2 says, I'm going to buy $2 million worth of real estate. I'm going to reinvest the profits, pay it off faster, and be done in like 20 years. Number 3 is my plan. Now, my plan is actually a lot more different than these plans, and it's a lot more conservative. Overall, my idea is I plan on buying this $400,000 worth of real estate with as much cash as possible and the least amount of leverage. That means, okay, for the first 3-4 years, I'm going to be paying cash for all my properties. I'm going to look at properties that cost around like 60K to 80K. And my overall goal is I plan on buying these properties for a 10% discount. That way I have built-in equity. Number 2 is I'm going to pay cash for it. I'm going to reinvest the savings, well, the returns I actually made from the property. I'm going to reinvest it to buy the next property. I'm also going to take money from my stock portfolio, and I'm also take money from my savings to be able to just basically speed the whole thing through, okay? This basically means that if I have $100,000 and I grab 60K to buy a property at a 10% discount, well, I buy that property with its profits my stock withdrawals, my savings, and all those things together, I buy my next property, then my next property. Now, I ran the numbers, and by year 3 or year 4, I'm going to run out of money. And by that point, I'm going to need to borrow around like 53% of the loan from the bank. But by that point, I already have like 3 paid off properties making me money. And I can basically just grab the profits from that property, my savings, plus the stock market, and pay off that property that same year and continue doing this over and over and over again. That means in about 10 years, I have all the money I require, it's fully paid off, and then like 10 years later, those properties double in value potentially, right? And then I have more money, but I don't have any of the debt per se. That's my plan, that's my idea, and it's because I don't want to borrow that much money whatsoever, and I'm not that much in a rush whatsoever either. Now, here are a few rules and a few mistakes that I want to avoid overall. The number one rule is going to be whenever I buy a property and I'm paying cash for it, I want to get at least a 10% discount. That way, I always have built in equity. Rule number two is when I buy a property, I'm not going to be buying another property until the current property is paid off fully. That means if I buy a property and I borrow money to buy it, I'm going to have to pay that one off before I actually buy the next one. And on top of that, lastly, I plan on buying to hold forever. That's my idea. Hold forever or hold until I can basically make a ridiculous amount of money if something crazy happens, you know? And here's one mistake I want to avoid that I keep seeing over and over and over again in every book I read is basically I don't plan on actually buying property out of state or properties that are like more than 30 minutes away from me. That's one big thing because buying out of state properties is expensive, it's hard to manage, and it actually eats into your margins. Okay, so for me, I plan on buying properties in my area that's like 10 minutes or like 30 minutes away, and that's basically it's a lot more easier to manage, and you can know the neighborhood a lot better. Overall, guys, okay, this stuff looks simple on paper, and it's important you put it on paper, but when you put it into action, it does require a lot of work, obviously. Now, my plan when I get to year 3 potentially and I run out of money, by that point I should be making, God willing, about $666 every single month coming in from profits. But on top of that, by that point too, I should have a paid off home also. Just like yes, I have 3 rental properties and I also have a personal property paid off. And that way I feel a lot more comfortable. You know why? Because I don't have to worry about my cost of living because I'm only going to be paying taxes and maintenance for the property and not a mortgage for my personal property. And I also have 3 like investment properties. And I'll get to my goal little by little, step by step. Okay, that's the overall idea, guys. This plan is simple, mine is at least. Doesn't require that much leverage, but it does require a lot of time and a lot of hard work. Okay, and by the way, you might say, Tommy, in my area, properties are nowhere near like 60K per property or like 100K per property, like more like 150 or like 200. The answer is you could also do it. Remember, there are different ways to do it. Okay, so if you're gonna be doing leverage, like okay, I'm gonna grab the bank's money too. Well, you could say I'm gonna buy a property that's like 100K. I only have 50K or like 30K. Okay, you put that down as a down payment. You grab the profits, you put it in. You grab your savings, you put it in. And then once that's paid off, you buy the next property. But this time you buy the next property a lot faster because you have the profits from the other property, right? So you could go step by step. You could borrow money, pay that off, borrow money, pay that off, borrow money, pay that off. And it's a little easier to get in the game. It's all up to you how you want to do it. But for me personally, this makes the most sense for my risk tolerance and the type of way I want to live my lifestyle. Now, there is a great book I recommend, and it's called How to Build Wealth One House at a Time. Here's the book right here, and it is a solid read. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified, and comment down below, guys. So I know you made it all the way to the end of the video. Well, how much income do you want to make every single year from real estate? Number 2 is, what is your return going to be? And number 3 is, what is your deadline? Okay, for me, again, I want to make 24K on a 6% return over 10 years, okay? Like around 10 years or so. That is my overall deadline. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified. Up here is another video. Over here is my face. And as always, long-term team officially out.